Okay, well, it's time for Birthright. And I decided to do Birthright all in one. Why? Because despite being a two-part episode, it really is all one story. And splitting it in half wouldn't really work all that well. Anyways, so as you see here, this is one of the occasions where we have a crossover between the Next Generation and DS9. As you can see, this actually has the Enterprise docked at DS9. And also, Julian Bashir is in this episode. Dun dun dun. Anyways, so the, I'm going to call it B plot, is Data experimenting with stuff to try to well, at first he doesn't really have a plan. He's just examining something that Bashir found and trying to figure out what it is. Then goes on a sort of vision quest sort of experience, trying to understand the concept of dreaming as it applies to a Soong type android. Not a particularly important thing, but it does add a beneficial thing of making it so that the Worf parts of the story, when it jumps back and forth, it gives you the feeling that time passed. So that it's not like you look at the screen and have the screen say, and 5 hours later. So, that gives it something. Overall, though, as a TTRPG thing, the flaw with this one is having intense focus on two characters, Data and Worf. Obviously, the other characters are here, but it's that whole and X was here too sort of thing, where it's like, yes, they're there, they're in the scene, but they're not really, important to the story. They just exist, kind of, sort of. Now, that's not unworkable in a TTRPG. You don't need to have every character get, you know, heavy work every single session. You can have a session where it's focused on one character and then a different character the next session. So, Anyway, though, so what is there to borrow from this one? Well, Julian Bashir's device, he thinks it's some kind of a medical imaging scanner, but he doesn't really know what it is. And I don't know that they actually ever properly explain what the device actually is. Dum dum dum. And yeah, whatever the effect it's having on Data, again, this device was not built by Soong. So whatever it's doing to Data, it can't possibly be acting as it's intended to work. Why exactly it's having this effect on Data isn't really explained as far as I know. And again, this is all stuff that's like really inside baseball, as applying to Sung type androids. So while it is something that is interesting character development for Data, would you be doing a similar kind of character development in a TTRPG version of this? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, going with the logic of having, episodes exploit character backstories, great idea. The specific methodology used here is specific to Data and not necessarily something that you would want to use in your own story later on. Anyway, the Worf story. Hmm. Oh yeah, that guy. That guy's actually in a lot of episodes. Hmm. Okay, so yeah, this is just Tony Cruz being a minor background character repeatedly, and in one episode he gets referred to by name. Hmm. Oh well. Honestly, though, like I said before, having minor characters that show up repeatedly makes the world feel more alive. Like it makes it feel like you're not the only characters in the world. There are actual like other people to interact with and so on. Anyway, though, so something more plot critical. Interestingly, this is James Cromwell. Well, people know James Cromwell for a different character, perhaps a bit more. Because while this is a good character, it's not a recognizable one because Iridian makeup is a lot. Yeah, this is the guy who played Zephram Cochrane in First Contact. Thing is, he played a few other roles as well. Um, yeah, that guy. And that guy too. Hmm. His role as Shrek is actually quite good though. Anyway, though, back to that. Shrek, why exactly Shrek is doing what he's doing is something that's kind of hard to figure out. Because, one, we find out that Shrek's information is wrong. And that's one thing they never actually get around to explaining in this story is why Shrek is doing what he's doing. See, Shrek's deal is he claims to be an information broker. He does not say what he wants Worf to give him in exchange for the information. And that's a bit of an odd plot thing. It's like an information broker. Hmm. Hey, it's a plausible concept. Iridians as third parties that um, sell things to the Federation and or the Romulans. Because again, the reason this guy's able to sneak Worf into Karaya is because of the fact that he has dealings with the Romulans that give the Romulans a reason to consider his presence normal and not be immediately suspicious of the fact that he's in the system. Because if it's a Federation ship, they'd probably take shoot on sight. So interestingly enough, though, is that Shrek actually shows up in both parts of Birthright because uh, in order to pick up Worf, His friends need to figure out where Shrek left him. And it turns out Shrek did actually file a proper flight plan when leaving DS9. A flight plan that actually listed that he was going to go to Karaya. Now, the whole thing of the background information where they had this idea that they were going to make him seem more sympathetic by explaining that he used to be living in a prison himself and just wants to help. Okay. Why exactly he is doing this, though, is still a mystery because of the fact that, as we find out, Shrek is wrong, and Moog was never here. I mean, the other Klingons are here, obviously, but not Moog. And Moog was the person that Shrek was using as the bait in order to get Worf to show up. So again, gives you reason to question his motives, regardless of whether he has a sympathetic backstory or not. And so, what do we know about the prison? Well, the prison has a bunch of Klingons in it being forced to live in a penal colony by the Romulans. One of the things that's interesting is there are some people here who are hybrid Klingon Romulans. And this is an interesting thing because when you look at this, she actually does have interesting cranial features that you don't see on Klingons all that often. So it is actually rather uniquely defined that Klingon Romulan hybrids have a special sort of forehead shape. Because, like, this is her mother. Like, yeah, okay, I can see certain similarities, but there's a lot of differences. And this is one of the things where Worf apparently thinks that the way she looks is odd when he initially sees her. And then when he later on notices that she has pointy ears, he's like, wait a second, you're half Romulan, aren't you? Oh no. I do have to say, though, that this is one of those episodes where the way that Worf handles things while in the Romulan prison camp is one of those things where in a TTRPG setting, you could, have choices where players have different outcomes for a thing. Like, Worf trying to convince the young Klingons in order to get them to act more like how he thinks a Klingon should act. Which, as has been established in other episodes, Worf's idea of what a Klingon is what a human thinks the ideal Klingon is, and what most Klingons think is stupid and overly idealistic. But, Worf still pushes that approach to being a Klingon and tries to convince other Klingons to live like that too. Does he succeed sometimes? Maybe. But here, he's just he's not really getting that deep into it. He's just doing superficial stuff like teaching them how to live like Klingons, which they had been at least raised in part by Romulans because it's a Romulan prison colony, and yeah, they don't really get to leave and have to do what the Romulans tell them, and blah 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 blah. that's another thing about this is that while there are a lot of characters introduced there, Worf is the only main cast at Karaya. I mean, you have the Iridian guy who does actually set foot on Karaya, but he is only there to drop off Worf and pick him back up again later. Doesn't really do much. And I'm not actually sure if he's uh, genuinely planning to pick up Worf later in either. That's the thing about this that's a bit fuzzy, is because Worf doesn't leave on the Iridian ship. He doesn't get extracted the way he was wanting to get extracted, or originally thought he was going to get extracted, I suppose I should say. Again, it goes back to the whole like murky intentions of the Iridian guy. It's like, did he get paid by the Romulans to lure Worf into a trap? If so, it wasn't much of a trap because he doesn't actually tell the Romulans that Worf is there. He just leaves Worf on the planet, and eventually the Romulans figure out he's there. Shrek doesn't tell them. Shrek just leaves Worf alone on a planet where he's hopelessly outnumbered and outgunned. It's kind of weird. It's one of those like plot-induced convenience things where it's like, yes, this is what the plot says is going to happen. Why is it happening? Good question. Don't know. Anyway, though, Karaya as a location is interesting because it's basically a jungle planet that was uninhabited before the Romulans decided to build a penal colony here. And it's doesn't seem to have a whole lot of importance other than that. It's like it's a place where you could have a rather large population center because, it's a lush, verdant planet, blah, blah, blah. It's not harsh to live on. It's actually quite pleasant. I mean, so, having a proper colony world here, great idea. Why are they using it for a penal colony instead of a, regular colony? No idea. That doesn't get touched on at all. So yeah, other than that, yeah, there's really not a huge amount to think with here. It's like Worf's methodology of leaving the penal colony and returning to the Federation and his normal post at the bridge of the Enterprise. Okay, sure, but there's what makes it interesting as a story is all of the sort of dialogue decisions that Worf has to make while dealing with the Romulans on the colony world, because he has to talk to them. He can't just avoid them. And also there's the fact that, like any smart person, the Romulans take regular head counts and they know Worf's not one of the prisoners. Yeah, doesn't take them long to realize Worf doesn't belong there and act appropriately. Oh well. Like I said, a lot of this is about personal preference. Like, what do you want to do in your story? Having the players go to a prison planet run by the Romulans? You can do that if you want. Some players would probably like that. Whether your particular playgroup likes that or not, well, hey, that's between you and them. The whole angle of Worf going looking for his father, as a personal development thing, great idea. From an in-universe lore thing, it's kind of like turning a monkey wrench sideways before shoving it into a hole. It's because it's just like you're establishing something that hadn't come up before and doing so in a way that is easily forgettable, despite it seemingly being an important plot development. Ah, boy. Well, like I said, do it with this as you will, because trying to say this is what you should do with this, I can't, because of the fact that this is something that's going to need to be heavily customized to fit your personal tastes in a adventure. And uh, the amount of customization needed is going to be more than I can tell you in this video. So, see you later.